Hey everyone, it's Lisa Danford. I am thrilled to have the terrific Teresa Davis from Davis Studio here today. She is an amazing creativity expert, an 18-year plus entrepreneur, and today we're going to be talking about our superpower of creativity. So Teresa, thanks for showing up today and sharing your brilliance with us.
I've been looking forward to this, Lisa.
But before we jump in, and I definitely want to jump right in because we have a lot to share in 20 minutes. I want to just share a little bit about Teresa and why she's here. She's the founding director of Davis Studio. And Teresa believes, I love this, Teresa. Teresa believes that everyone thrives in a world that promotes and supports creativity. She loves nothing more than helping others give voice to their unique perspectives through art. And today she's going to be talking about creativity, your secret superpower. So welcome, Teresa. Let's get in.
Excellent.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like this is such a big component of who you are. How did you start leaning into this superpower of creativity?
I think that probably it is something that I think so many of us have as children. And I think the biggest reason I am still there is I really held on tight to that inner child. And so I think I play easily. My imagination goes all over the place. And I think so many of us should try to access creativity. It is getting back and actually restoring our connection to our creativity. It's not finding it in the first place because we all have it.
Why do we lose it? Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I find that in the work that I do with my clients as well.
Yes, I think that just society in general, there's some kinds of developmental things that happen. And when we're young, we are those kind of brave people who will dress, at 4. One of my favorite times I went to a matinee where there were a lot of kids attending, and somebody, a 4 or 5-year-old, had dressed for the occasion and literally had on perhaps 60 pieces of jewelry, skirts. It was so fantastic to see. And a lot of us are like that at age 4 and 5. And in fact, that's when our test scores of creativity peak at that age. So there's
peak at 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm. So there's this wonderful Torrance test of creativity, and it's how many out of the box ideas do you have? And 4, 5, and 6-year-olds score incredibly high on that. And then it kind of declines over the years. And some of it is we become more aware and we get very fearful. And we don't want to step out of the box or do something that draws attention to ourselves. And so we stop taking those risks and we stop failing and we stop doing anything outside of the box. So I think we get socialized by society in that way. And that happens to a lot of us.
It happened to me when I was younger. I had a teacher, an English teacher, who was not the nicest teacher. And I still, to this day, I'm like, I'm a horrible writer. And I can always trigger it back to her, the pressure that she put on me. And it's something that I'm trying to release. So I so absolutely resonate with what you're saying.
I think there's actually a few fears that I think prevent us from this. And I think one is that fear of the messy unknown. We want, and you'll see this with children with art, and we can do it ourselves at our jobs. It's like, you did one thing and it turned out well. And so you're like, that is the way I do it. And you'll often see kids who is like, they'll make a house and a rainbow and they get complimented on it. And then for the next 2 years, you get nothing but houses and rainbows because they were like, they know that works, that got a good response, and they don't want to take that risk. And we can do that exact same thing as adults and just, I did that once and that worked. And now I'm scared to go into the unknown. And I think we get afraid of judgment and we don't want to come forward with an idea that other people don't love. And I often tell people, when you're brainstorming with yourself or with somebody else, say, here's a bad idea. Oh, and here's another bad idea. And here's the worst idea. And suddenly it makes you kind of laugh and it frees you up so that you're not trying to always present or have that perfect idea.
It definitely sounds like it disrupts those well-worn neural pathways. I always say when you're going to do something that you shouldn't be doing, like, watching cat videos rather than, writing copy or whatever, state it out loud. I'm going to choose to do this. And it disrupts those well-worn neural pathways, which is just so, so important. I love what you're saying. Let's jump into why is creativity so important in impacting our business or our career?
Yes, I think that, many people just define creativity as, an art form. And so I often have people say to me, "Oh, I'm not creative, or I'm not a creative person." And what they often mean is they don't draw. And it's really funny because while I absolutely, as an art educator, believe that art is a wonderful tool for creativity, it is not the end all and be all of creativity. And many people are very creative and just aren't embracing it or using it to their advantage. So I think, when you talk about what creativity actually is, it's the process of having an original idea that has value. And that opens up to so many things.
Can you repeat that just to sort of ground it in? Because I think that sentence alone was so powerful.
So creativity is the process of having an original idea that has value. So it could be an original work of art, but it also could be, oh, I have a new way to organize something, or I have a unique solution to a problem. So all of those are ways that we use our creativity. And so I think art is one component of being creative, but it is just one. And creativity is so much bigger and broader than that. And creativity is also a skill that can be practiced. I think that's the other myth. People feel like you were born creative or not. And I have many people tell me, oh, my mother was very creative and my daughter is very creative, but it has skipped me. It has skipped my generation. And that is such a myth, because it is like learning to read, learning to play the piano, or learning to play a sport. Creativity is a skill that takes practice and can be learned.
And we have to make time for it, right? We have to schedule it. It's not going to just come when we're like, I want to be more creative.
Yeah.
If it's a skill, we can learn it, but we have to make it a priority if it's something that we want. And talk a little bit more about how it truly impacts our careers, our business, when we bring that creativity.
Sure. It's interesting because I think there are two sides to the coin to address you have to prioritize it and make time for it. And I think that is true. So maybe taking the first step at doing something risky, that's a way that you could practice creativity and actively do something. But there is another side where you need to be passive, because creativity needs space and boredom. And, there's this delicious phrase that I heard somebody say, that within your day, you need to take sips of white space, where you aren't
Amen.
somebody, and you aren't listening to a podcast, and you aren't inundated with all of the noise of the world. And if you think about it, that's often when these original ideas that have value come into your mind, when you're taking a walk by yourself, when you're taking a shower. That's why, because we've actually allowed enough space for those to bubble up. So to be creative, you both need to take some active steps, but you also need to just allow some empty space. And I think that is really, really important. And that's part of what's really lacking in our society today. So
it's a main component of what's lacking in our society today. I'm finding there's the polarities, and what we need to focus on is that third way. The way that it was described to me, and I love the simplicity of this, is, in-breath is very important, out-breath is very important, but too much of either, and it's deadly, right? So to have the structure to invite the creativity, but the freedom to explore allows that third way, and inviting
that beautiful sweet spot. That's a perfect analogy. That's just really fantastic. It's interesting as far as career is concerned, which was your original question, and then I picked it up a little bit. But that from the last decade or so, creativity has been listed as either the number one or one of the top skills that employers are looking for, or that entrepreneurs and CEOs need. And it really, you can Google it, and it's like the skill of the future, creativity. And people have been really talking about that a lot. And it goes along with complex problem solving and critical thinking, both of which are exactly tied and kind of coupled with creativity as well. And one of the things that I often tell parents, and I don't mean this in a too scary or a negative way, but I'm like, the robots are coming. Artificial intelligence, as far as career and future, are going to replace some crazy thing. I wrote down the statistic. They said 85 million jobs worldwide by 2025 will disappear because of artificial intelligence. And that means new jobs will be created. But the jobs that are going to be disappearing are the jobs that have less of that human component of empathy, compassion, imagination, creativity. The jobs that are going to be more important have all of those components. And so it's really vital that we don't ignore our creativity when it is such a critical piece of kind of the future, and that we're really moving into, I think, the age of creativity.
And I think it's also an integral piece of our joy and our fulfillment. To be able to have the spaciousness of creativity allows us to explore more of what we want so that we can let go of what's no longer serving us.
That's exactly right. And I think when I think of another sort of component or piece of creativity, I think of the French, which I don't speak French, but joie de vivre, you know, the joy of life, and that sort of variety that can happen when you are embracing creative pursuits. And again, I want to bring it out of that art mode. Art, you know, I'm a big art ambassador, and so I do really promote the arts because it is such a powerful tool. But gardening, you know, flower arranging, cooking, you know, decorating your house, even choosing what you're going to wear in the morning. All of those are ways that you are exercising out of the box thinking and just trying something new. And those types of things just add to the quality of your life and are incredibly satisfying.
So what I'm hearing really is we need to start sort of creating that habit of thinking outside of the box and exploring a new scarf, cooking a new, you know, I have one client who one of her outlets is she wants to try one new plant-based recipe a week to bring to her family. And that is such a great way because it's sustaining the family, it's sustaining her curiosity and her creativity. And just to me, it's better for the planet as well.
Right. And I think sometimes that can feel like, oh, I don't have time for some new thing or new venture. And we can feel very tired and feel kind of exhausted by the thought, because it does take energy to do that kind of thing. And so I really recommend starting super small and being more playful. So change your routines in a fun way. If you always put the right sock on first, start your day by putting the left sock on. If you always drive or walk this one route, just take a different route. And those kinds of things don't take any more time. They are just those little changes. And so if you challenge yourself to take that first step, because often that's the part that we're the most afraid of, things seem big and huge and daunting until you just do one little thing, you know, buy one unique ingredient at the grocery store rather than saying, I'm going to cook an entire plant-based meal. Just be like, every time I go, I'm going to buy a weird thing I've never tried before, you know. So you can do it in these little ways that I think prime you for being more alive and playful, and you know, it will move you in that direction nicely.
I love the one of trying to brush your teeth with your with the opposite hand, the non-dominant hand. That is really strangely tough.
Live wildly. You could put your makeup on with a non-dominant hand, and then people might really wonder about you.
Oh gosh, I can't even. Lipstick.
That may be just a little too far.
So I know you just gave some examples, but how do we really get started in really building in that habit? You know, how can we enhance our lives with this beautiful thought of an idea of creativity?
I think it is all of those little ways of not being afraid to take that first step and that variety. And I think getting a sketchbook, even if you're not an artist, and always the fear of the blank page is terrifying. And just make a mark right away. And then don't be so judgmental. Just be like, oh, that's interesting. Get a lot more curious about what you're doing and get rid of being judgmental about what you're doing. So, you know, drawing, painting, doodling are, you know, really great ways. Just moving your body, or, you know, like we mentioned, taking a walk, embracing that boredom, getting inspired, that always helps a lot. So, you know, if you have, you know, just go to an art museum or a nature walk or a new shop, or listen to a TED Talk, you know, anything that is just going to spark you in a new way, I think is really helpful. The variety that we talked about to add to your routines. And I think it all, if I was going to sum it up, I would say make more time for play. Play is every bit as essential for adults as it is for those 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. And a big reason why they are so creative is because they are very playful and imaginative in everything they do.
I know in my business, I got certified in the one thing, and they have this thing that's called the Wheel of Life, and there's there's 7 circles. And for me, when I look at all the 7 circles, and then you ask, what's one of these that will make the most amount of impact in my life, and it's always my business, right? Like that I want to impact. It's play. When I invite more play, my business is just easier. It's actually been growing much more significantly when I make sure that I make space for play and fun and creativity. It's amazing. And those are the things I bring with my clients. It's like, it's not just picking up the phone and prospecting that's going to drive your business. It's actually creating the space for joy, for fulfillment, for creativity.
Well, and I think I just did a retreat with our staff at Davis Studio, and we were talking about the dose, DOSE, which is of those happiness hormones. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. And we think, oh, yeah, those all make us feel good. But you actually can make a list of the things that give you bursts of those kind of happy hormones and go do them. So you might want to just start, what's your joy list or your play list or your creativity list? And creativity is such a big part of what gives us fulfillment, and the actual making of something or doing something with our hands is often underrated. In society today, we're so in our heads, and then we only feel like we can do something if we're really good at it, and otherwise we just don't do it. And so I think letting yourself, giving yourself permission to fail, giving yourself permission to try something, even if you're terrible at it, it is incredibly freeing. And realizing that the goal is not always to reach perfection with whatever activity. The goal is actually to play and enjoy it. No 5-year-old says, I'm terrible at running around the yard, so I'm just going to stop.
I'm just going to sit. No. And I think that is absolutely imperative. We have to be willing to not be good in order to improve at something. And it's so prevalent that we don't. I'm horrible at it, whether it is being in business, whether it doesn't matter what it is that belief system. And our beliefs drive our behaviors. Even our opportunities are tied to those beliefs. So where are those beliefs coming from, and what can we do when we look at the habits and the beliefs that are getting in the way of our creativity?
Absolutely. Everything that you just said is kind of like, it's changed your thinking about yourself, and the world really opens up in so many, many ways.
Yeah. And we have to be willing to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love it. Is there anything that I did not ask you that you would like to share?
I don't know. It's fun. We've covered all kinds of territory in 20 minutes. It's a topic that is endless as far as I'm concerned. You could, exploring your own creativity and playing with others and their creativity is also a really wonderful thing. And whether you have children or you have business partners or a spouse, I think that infusing that creative energy and play into your relationships is also really enhancing. It doesn't always have to be a solo activity.
I would love to ask you, as you were just speaking, this popped in my head. How has Davis Studio and the work that you do supported you in living and leading a sustainable life?
I think having meaningful work where you feel like you are improving the lives of others is so rewarding. And I feel like we see transformation every day at Davis Studio of people who came in more closed, who they try something new, they open up. Sometimes they find a lifelong passion or make lifelong friends. And other times they just, are brave enough to try something new, and it was a valuable experience. But I think that when you feel like you're impacting people to that degree every day, you can't help but have a stable and fulfilling, career life and beyond.
So true. It's so true. And at Davis Studio, you have kids at a very young age, and you've got adult programs, and I mean, up to what, 70, 80, 90 that come in and just play.
We go all through from preschool through senior citizen. And a few years ago, in one semester, my youngest student that I personally was teaching was 2, and the oldest student that I had was, I think, 97. So I had, and I had a lot of students in between. But what was interesting to me is some of the methods, approaches, materials were not all that different at the different age groups. We're still human, and we still have those interest, needs, and and love to explore through art and creativity.
All right. So let us know, what one habit has allowed you to live a more and lead a more sustainable life, you personally?
Mm. I mean, there's so many, but I think probably it's for me, it's a lot about self-talk and what I tell myself. And I think years and years and years ago, I made a determination that I was going to treat myself in the same way I would a good friend. And so I don't talk crap about myself. You know, there are moments when I'm not confident or something, or something failed and I have to reassess. But I do try very, very hard to have the kind of self-talk that I would towards somebody else who I care about. And that has really made a big difference in my ability to rebound from things and try new things and to be brave.
That is brilliant, to show ourselves the grace that we show everyone around us. So thank you. Thank you so much. Where can people reach out to you if they want to check out your website? Is there a social profile? Where can people find you?
Yeah, probably the best place is our website, which is Davis Studio VT, as in Vermont. So davisstudiovt.com, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Davis Studio. So those would be two places that you could find us. And we are located in South Burlington on Shelburne Road. And if you pass us, there's a nice big paintbrush on top of the sign.
And if you do live in and around Vermont, or you're visiting, be sure to stop by. It is an amazing studio, and it's just inspiring the moment that you walk in. So I just want to say hello to Nan Patrick, who says, good plan to treat yourself like a friend. Thanks, Nan. I appreciate that. And it is so true. You can't go wrong when you're doing that. So next week, please join me and Nikki Groom on April 27th. We're going to be talking about all things leadership, business. She's an author, podcast host, a coach. Again, that is April 27th, 10 a.m. East Coast time. We will see you there. And Teresa, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It was really fun.